October 26, 2016, Jerusalem. A team of engineers carefully lifts a marble slab that hasn't been moved in over 400 years. As the ancient stone rises, everyone expects to see bedrock underneath. Instead, they find another slab, and beneath that, another layer, and another. With each layer removed, they travel further back in time. Then, 3 feet down, their instruments detect something that makes them freeze: a hollow space, a sealed chamber, untouched for centuries. What they discovered in that darkness would trigger debates that still rage today, revealing evidence that challenges our understanding of how history is preserved, remembered, and sometimes hidden beneath our feet. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands as one of Christianity's holiest sites, visited by millions of pilgrims each year. Built and rebuilt over nearly 17 centuries, its walls contain layers of history, each telling a different chapter of human devotion and architectural ambition. By 2016, the weight of those centuries had begun to show. Cracks appeared in ancient masonry. Stone pillars showed signs of stress. The structure, bearing the footsteps of countless generations, desperately needed attention. What church authorities initially conceived as straightforward restoration work would soon become something far more extraordinary. A team of experts from the National Technical University of Athens arrived to assess the structural integrity of the shrine. Their mission seemed clear: document the damage, recommend repairs, and preserve this irreplaceable monument for future generations. Standard procedure for such historic sites. Nothing unusual anticipated. But architecture often holds secrets, and old buildings rarely surrender them willingly. As engineers conducted their surveys, using ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging to map the building's interior structure, something peculiar appeared on their monitors. The reading showed an anomaly beneath the traditional burial site, an irregularity in the substrate that shouldn't exist, according to historical records. The floor beneath the shrine wasn't solid bedrock, as everyone had assumed. There was something else down there, something hollow. What happened next required delicate negotiation between multiple religious authorities who share custody of the church. The Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Armenian Apostolic churches each maintain different sections of the building, and any excavation would need unanimous approval. After weeks of discussion, permission was granted for a careful investigation. On October 26, 2016, researchers began the painstaking process of lifting the marble slab that had covered the traditional burial site since at least 1555 AD. Many present expected to find bedrock, perhaps with some medieval construction debris. Instead, they discovered another marble slab beneath it, this one heavily damaged and considerably older. Beneath that, they found something even more unexpected: a section of flooring that appeared to have been deliberately concealed, with evidence of intentional coverage dating back centuries. As the team continued their careful excavation, they uncovered layer after layer of historical deposits. Each stratum told a story of renovation, preservation, and human effort to protect what lay beneath. The deeper they went, the older the materials became. Then, approximately 3 feet down, they encountered something remarkable. The bedrock showed clear evidence of ancient quarrying and modification. Tool marks indicated that first-century stoneworkers had carved directly into this limestone, creating a specific type of burial structure known from that period. But the real surprise came when their instruments detected a void, a sealed chamber beneath the traditional burial platform. The cavity appeared to be intact, showing no signs of previous modern intrusion. Whatever lay inside had remained undisturbed, potentially for centuries. The investigation that followed would take months and involve specialists from multiple disciplines. What emerged from their careful documentation painted a picture far more complex than anyone had anticipated. The archaeological evidence revealed that this location had indeed been a garden area in the 1st century, exactly as ancient sources described. Soil samples contained pollen from plants typical of cultivated gardens in Roman period Jerusalem. The limestone bedrock showed the characteristic cutting patterns of 1st century Jewish burial preparation. Most significantly, the team identified what archaeologists call Koch-style burial benches, carved directly from the living rock. These represented a specific type of Jewish burial practice used in Jerusalem during a narrow window of time, primarily in the 1st century. Within the sealed sections, researchers found traces of degraded linen fibers, consistent with burial shrouds used in that era. The preservation was poor after 2 millennia, but chemical analysis confirmed the materials matched fabrics produced in the ancient Levant. The void detected beneath the burial slab proved to be a small chamber, its ceiling showing soot marks that suggested oil lamps had once burned there. Scratch marks on the walls indicated repeated visits over time, possibly by people paying respects or conducting ceremonies in the early centuries after the site's original use. Perhaps most intriguing was what they didn't find: any evidence of continuous habitation or repurposing of the space between the 1st century and the 4th century, when Emperor Constantine's builders constructed the first church on this location. The site appeared to have been carefully preserved and protected during those intervening centuries, suggesting it held special significance even before official Christian recognition. When the findings were announced, they triggered immediate and intense discussion across multiple communities. Archaeologists debated the interpretation of the evidence. Historians questioned the reliability of early sources. Religious scholars examined the implications for traditional narratives. Some experts pointed out that ancient Jerusalem contained numerous 1st century tombs, and the presence of burial structures alone couldn't confirm any specific individual's interment. The city's bedrock is riddled with similar carved chambers, many still visible today. Others noted that the evidence of continuous veneration from the 4th century backward was significant. The early church builders had clearly identified this specific location as important enough to construct a major basilica around it, suggesting a well-established tradition even in Constantine's time. The debate intensified around the question of authenticity and verification. How could anyone definitively prove whose burial the site represented when no inscriptions or identifying markers existed? Physical evidence from that era rarely includes the kind of documentation modern investigators would prefer. Some scholars emphasized the archaeological context, the location outside the city walls of 1st century Jerusalem, as required by Jewish burial law, the garden setting mentioned in historical accounts, the specific type of tomb used by wealthy families of that period. All these elements aligned with descriptions in ancient sources. Critics countered that correlation doesn't equal confirmation, and that remarkable claims require remarkable evidence. The physical findings, while interesting, couldn't bridge the gap between a 1st century tomb and a specific historical burial without additional corroborating information. Religious authorities approached the findings with varied perspectives. Some welcomed the archaeological investigation as supporting traditional beliefs. Others worried that scientific scrutiny might undermine faith-based acceptance. Still others maintained that the spiritual significance of the site transcended physical verification. Beyond the immediate debate about this specific location, the discoveries raised fascinating questions about historical preservation and memory. The evidence suggested that certain sites in ancient Jerusalem had been carefully maintained across centuries, even during periods of political upheaval and religious change. This pattern of preservation indicates that local communities possess detailed knowledge of their city's sacred geography, passing that information across generations. The findings also highlighted how archaeology and tradition can inform each other. Physical evidence provides tangible data, while historical memory preserves context that artifacts alone cannot convey. Neither approach alone tells the complete story. For restoration experts, the discoveries demonstrated the value of non-invasive investigation before any construction work. What seemed like a simple repair project had revealed layers of hidden history, reminding us that ancient buildings often contain more than we initially perceive. The investigation also showcased modern technology's ability to explore sacred spaces respectfully. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and chemical analysis allowed researchers to gather significant data without destructive excavation, balancing scientific inquiry with reverence for the site's religious importance. Today, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands restored and reinforced, its structure stabilized for future generations. The marble slabs have been returned to their positions, and pilgrims once again visit as they have for centuries. But beneath those ancient stones, we now know, lies a chamber that once held secrets, the hidden floor that concealed centuries of history, the burial benches carved from Jerusalem limestone, the traces of linen that whispered of ancient practices. All of it speaks to a moment in time when this place transformed from a working tomb into a site of memory and meaning. The debate continues among scholars, archaeologists, and theologians. New techniques may yet reveal additional information. Further studies might answer lingering questions. But regardless of how future evidence unfolds, one thing remains certain. Sometimes the most profound discoveries begin with a simple crack in an old wall and the courage to look deeper. What other secrets lie beneath our feet, waiting in the darkness for someone to ask the right questions? Only time and careful investigation will tell.